Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer at the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI's Brand Response Council. These 20-minute live conversations featuring leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry are scheduled twice a month. Before we get to today's conversation, a housekeeping note. We'll be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session. You don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the episode. Today's episode, Reforecasting for 2022, harkens back to January when the PDMI's Workshop Council presented a webinar featuring 10 performance marketing experts sharing their fearless predictions for this year. Today, we'll expand on our traditional 20-minute format by an additional 20 minutes to host this conversation among D2C leaders who, using 3 months of new data points, will share their insights on what to expect in the remaining 9 months of the year. As a matter of fact, some of those experts out there are already resetting those expectations, as Magna, one of the big agency groups that does projections on ad revenue annually, has already reset their expectations for 2022, knocking off 1.5 points of growth in response to what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So that's just one data point that this group will get to. Modern Postcard's Chris Foster, who appeared on the January webinar and is chair of our Brand Response Council, is here to welcome these 5 experts. Robin Behar, co-founder and CEO of Clover Marketing. Ron Hadler, Vice President, Data and Innovation for Red Door Interactive. Kevin Hayes, Senior Vice President of Media Sales for American Target Network. Mark Sullivan, Vice President of Convergent Ad Sales at Paramount, and Cody Tunney, Executive Vice President of Analytics at Yangaroo, and the newest member of our Brand Response Council. So welcome, Cody. Welcome all. Chris, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom, for the introduction, and welcome in, everybody. Really glad you're here, and welcome you to the audience for our first Take 20 after the PDMI East show. We're really excited to be with you today to kind of talk about this. We know that 2021 ended and 2022 began in the shadow of Omicron and supply chain shortages and a rising tide of inflation. Now that we are seeming to move out of the prior COVID shadow, we still have some supply issues, but we also see GDP and job growth in the economy. But there's also a war that began and continues to rage in Ukraine. So has our outlook changed? What kind of reforecasting have you done with your businesses? The new insights that you're gleaning from recent data, and at the PDMI East conference, that reveal different opportunities and discussions. So we're here with these experts, and we're looking to see how the landscape seems slightly different than what it was in the beginning of the year, and really looking to insights. And Cody, welcome to the Brand Response Council. Welcome to your first Take 20. And we're going to have you kick off the discussion because I know you've got some insights about 3 different prognostications that you want to share.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this council and to the webinar. I'm in a fortunate position that I don't have to go back to my original predictions for 2022, and I can start here as brand new. So my 3 predictions for the rest of 2022. The first one has to do with measurement. So as we enter in the 22-23 linear TV upfronts, we might see the market move away from its reliance on Nielsen-based ratings and guarantees and toward some potentially new measurement sources. There are other strong challengers in the marketplace now. We've got ComScore and iSpot who seem to be leading the way at the moment, but really it's anyone's game. At the beginning of the week, I had a prediction that Nielsen would be bought out by private equity, and that just happened yesterday. So well done, Nielsen, on your $16 billion buyout. But you know, the market is changing. We're evolving from a 2 decades, 3 decades old process, and now opening up to new players, options, innovations, and insight. So my second prediction is with regards to total video. So the combination of linear TV and CTV. We are 6 years into a mixed linear and digital viewing environment, or CTV viewing environment. And we're starting to see a breakdown in the kind of dotted line that existed before between linear teams and digital teams. and them separating each other and skill sets, and now coming together into learning from each other and growing together. We'll see CTV grow, new reach, new audience reach, dynamic content. I'm excited to see how direct response brands continue to test the dynamic content and see what works, what sticks in attribution models. And then my third prediction has to do with the marketplace. So I think we're going to see lower sellout levels in the upfront this year versus last year. But as digital and linear continue to work together, I think networks will find a way to combine the two. So perhaps we might see a bit of buoying of rates and then the consolidation of deals together. And I have one more prediction, and that's in the post-COVID renaissance. We're seeing more RFPs come out. So the reliance on just year-over-year increases is starting to go away. Procurement teams are starting to go deeper into their current contracts and start the bidding process for new vendors, which is great. And we'll see a new focus on DEI initiatives. And in DEI really taking a strong place in the diverse supplier conversation.
Fantastic. First time up at bat, and I think you hit a grand slam. Well done.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
So one question that I would have, Cody, is on the measurement piece. We know that there was a lot of attention drawn to the essay by NBC Universal last fall about challenges, questions with Nielsen. Nielsen now is a buyout. You mentioned iSpot among some others. Do you think that it is a play where more businesses will be emerging to tackle this revenue challenge, a measurement challenge, or do you think there's going to be consolidation from larger businesses to kind of scoop up these smaller businesses to take control?
I think it's going to be a bit of both. The heavy reliance on Nielsen going away and opening up marketplace and bids to new contenders is fantastic, and it's going to inspire innovation, hopefully, and better measurement. So new players will come, and the consolidation will continue.
Excellent. Fantastic. Very well done. Love the way you kicked that off. Kevin, off to you. You're to my right.
Okay. One of my predictions is the continued huge growth of AVOD. A lot of consumers are having subscriber fatigue. The economy is a little bit on the radar, and people are looking at ways to save money. And now more and more the providers are offering the commercial audience based kind of subscription basis, and that's going to create a lot more opportunities for us as advertisers, as marketers, to be able to utilize that inventory. And I think there's going to be a premium charge for that, for those premium video content. So there's actually going to be more competition for it. And then going along the lines with what Cody was predicting, the kind of blending of linear and digital or connected TV. We have somebody like Horizon that's experimenting with addressable on national linear stuff with A&E and Fox, and so I think we're going to see more of that combination. That linear is going to slowly turn into what we're already seeing on the streaming side of things, and there's really going to be like a blurred lines between the two of them. In the travel side of things, the increase in travel has been tremendous so far in the first quarter. A lot of people are planning on trips to Europe, but there is some hesitation still, obviously, with the conflict going on in Ukraine and how that might affect it. But the growth of that, and then the opportunities for people to travel in different ways, utilizing short-term, rentals, Airbnbs, etc., that continues to grow tremendously. The short-term rental market is set to grow by 25% this year, so that'll continue to be very strong. And those are the two big predictions that I have for this year.
I love it. I love it, especially with travel. What I think was so remarkable is from my perspective, I'm not in the travel industry, but seeing it from afar and in this space is the recovery and rebound. It's probably natural, right? The human nature to, get out again. But they, like restaurants I've seen, really contracted heavily for COVID, but just seems to be blossoming even more so than before. And I love it because travel, I think, ties into these deep-seated, these latent needs of human beings. Right? Sometimes they are, waiting kind of like a cork bottle to open up. So I agree with you completely. I think it fits perfectly with human nature, as to see the travel sector grow.
And they're seeing that people are also willing to pay a premium for trips as well. So money is not affecting, a lot of it so far, even though inflation is very high, people are still willing to go.
Yeah, that experience is worth it. Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Very well done. We're off to Mark. He's next.
Hello, everybody. It's interesting with the travel. I'll just touch on that for a second. I just filled up our car the other day in New Jersey, $95. That is easily $20 more than I've ever paid to fill up. Maybe I wasn't quite on empty before, but so I think travel is going to be interesting from yes, there'll certainly be some people who are, going to want to fly different places and who have not been able to do so. And there's going to be some people who are going to continue to go to that house on the shore because getting on a plane is going to be, even though it costs X amount of dollars to fill up the gas tank, it's going to be too expensive, even more expensive to get on that plane now. So there's just so many variables in play between inflation, the war in Ukraine, supply chain issues. But we're getting back to the office. I know we're going in a couple of days a week now, so the city's starting, New York City's starting to fill up a little more. I think they're getting back to work out in LA as well, on the West Coast, and so I don't want to say you have offsetting variables, but it's a mixed bag. It really is. But overall, I would just start off with CTV and what touching on what Kevin and Cody were referencing. I think we'll continue to see performance media test out CTV, whoever hasn't gone over there yet. And I think whoever has gone over there from the performance media side will continue to spend and or increase budgets on the, I think Tom referenced a Magna prediction on linear of a 1.5 reduction this year. And I think the CTV, I want to say, is something like in the 20% range, which is, I think they reduced that down, but still you're looking at a 20 to 30%, I believe, increase in CTV spend. So I think that will continue to, garner performance media attention on the CTV side. On the linear side, even though they're predicting a 1.5 reduction in overall year-over-year spend, I think performance media will actually be up. I think that's actually a positive sign to some degree for performance media. And I think that our total units sold across the linear portfolio will increase performance media space and will thus increase our revenue. I don't think we'll be down 1.5%. I think we'll be up on the performance media side of things for linear.
All right, so Mark, this is recorded, by the way, making that note.
Yeah, we record it. Put it down. That's what I think that's what we're seeing. There's more inventory out there in our space than there was a year ago, year over year, for performance, just speaking strictly about performance media and the direct response space for linear. That's not across every network, but when you put the whole entire marketplace in if you put the entire marketplace in one bucket, that bucket is larger, has more avails now than it did a year ago, I would say. And thus there are more, the unit rates have been right-sized to some degree on some networks, but the overall dollars are also up year over year.
Is that coming from the general side for you guys, Mark?
No, I'm just talking speaking strictly about performance media, direct response.
But you're getting more inventory because there's
there's more avails out there for us. Yep. Mm-hmm. For different reasons. Nielsen recalibrated out-of-home numbers from last year, and that was a bonus effect on the general side for us in first quarter. and other networks as well. So there's less ADU to have to pay back on the general side, which when that happens, when there's little to no ADU on a channel, that inventory tends to come our way, especially again, with all the variables that are going on in the world. It's, on some networks, on some day parts, it's falling to us more than it was a year ago, is the best way to say it. So I'm bullish on the rest of the year for
awesome. I love it.
Media in linear space and in CTV as well.
That's wonderful. It's an interesting thing where to go into the final, the last 3 quarters, optimistic about hitting those goals and optimistic about growing revenue. I actually think that plays into the day-to-day enthusiasm, right? I think that every day you're feeling, okay, I'm actually, the wind's in my back, right? As opposed to the
100%. Yeah.
Wins.
Yeah, and getting back into the city and getting back into seeing, our team and the people in our sales organization, and then, getting back into seeing clients more often than we had been, is just all positive. PDMI in Miami, we were lucky enough to attend, and that was, I think, I know that was very positive as well. We were very happy with the outcome, both seeing everybody from a social perspective, but from a business perspective as well. It worked out really well. So.
No, I'm a big believer in the upward spiral and upward spiral of momentum, where you just continue to move up, and that increases your velocity. So I hope that prognostication comes true. Fantastic.
Now that it's recorded, so do I.
Robin, you are next.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. And yes, I was on an earlier sort of giving my predictions for this year, so it is kind of interesting to reflect at this point. I'm going to lean into, which I think has become even more important, is I think the customer experience is going to be critical for this year, especially for D2C brands. And I'm speaking more from a lens as a brand and marketing, a whole marketing program. But I think what I've heard and what I've seen is the impact on all the iOS changes. What used to be really easy for D2C brands, especially startups, to go in and acquire customers at an efficient rate is not as easy as it was, and it's becoming more expensive. The cost of Amazon media is more expensive. So the brands I think that are going to still win is really winning on that customer experience, because also coming out of the Great Resignation, I don't know about all of you or everybody, but just as a consumer, I find myself out there trying to be more patient, trying to go with more grace, because the world is still shattered, and there's a lot of businesses that just don't have the staffing and the service levels, even like an American Express that you consider gold standard. You could just feel that they're just coming back. So I think brands that can really lean into that and start to earn trust and loyalty is going to be key. And one fact I read, I think Adweek posted this week, there was a customer service survey out in the world, and businesses that were rated think that, I think it was 61% believe they're delivering a great customer experience, and only 23% of customers believe the businesses are delivering. So there's a sort of gap, but to me, that's the opportunity. So I think CRM, is a quick little example. I ordered something on Amazon. I'm a loyal customer to sort of these Clever notebooks that I really like. And in my package was this great little gift, and it was such a delight, and I didn't expect it. So the idea to sort of over deliver, if you will, and build out the smallest little details, how you communicate on social media, the things you say, just respond to somebody, just answer and reply, I think will go a long way. So that's a really big prediction, I think, for this year in the face of rising digital media costs, particularly. I think the other area, and I'm probably a little biased because it's in my business, is international, and coming out of the shows in Chicago and Miami, you could just feel this emergence. There's a lot of innovation going outside the United States in terms of new products, new types of creative, new video content, and the game is they're really stepping up. And I think we're going to start to see an emergence of those brands and products looking at the United States and saying, how do I bring these successful products I've done in Europe or Asia, and how do I bring them into the US market, which becomes a great opportunity for all the service providers and media. So I think we're going to see more of that this year. And my final last piece in beauty, because I'm obsessed with beauty and I love the beauty industry and I work with a lot of beauty clients. According to State of the Industry, the Nielsen Google that I was on last month, hair. Come up with a hair product. Hair, the skinification of hair. Hair is going to be the it product this year in 2022.
Nice. This is recorded. Fantastic.
What's the skinification of hair?
Well, it's sort of, you think of, the way I understand, again, it's an industry term I'm sort of following and tracking, but if you think of skincare and sort of all these sort of from a process of, cleanse, treat, protect, you're going to start to see more of that and sort of how you deal with your hair care, particularly in shampoos and conditioners and products to protect, grow. So there's sort of that marketing sensibility that is going to come into hair products. And you're seeing a lot of that show up, particularly in digital. And you walk into Ulta and the expansion of those hair products is impressive.
Awesome, I love it. It's interesting. I've noticed just over the last several years a greater attention to men's grooming products, right? And suddenly it came up, and it reached some kind of threshold where Target then laminates the floor with this vinyl flooring in the section for men's grooming, right? It's an interesting thing, right? So there are these trends that start sweeping up. I love that idea that hair being a product that people take care of, and especially it could be, in theory you can't prove, now that folks are not in Zoom anymore and they're moving out a little bit, maybe there's a little bit more attention to that, right? I did love your comment, Robin, about the brands that not just over-deliver, but surprise and delight the user, right? Those are the ones that will succeed. It's not enough to be transactional. Surprising and delighting your customer are things that set you apart.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Ron Hadler, up to you.
Yes, it's always great being here at the end because and just such great content from everybody else. Luckily, I didn't quite cross over on anybody else. I am, though, happy to say that a few years back I wouldn't have been able to participate in the skinification of the hair, but I've got a little bit and I can kind of play that game. Kind of joining in with, I guess, starting off with cybersecurity is really what's been on my mind, and it's always a topic, it's always up high there. And just what, the Russian-Ukraine war really is kind of, I think, really put a spotlight on that. I think it's kind of like made more important by the fact that, everybody's working from home. We don't have the sort of like tools and security that we do working from home. Everybody's kind of setup is not what they have when they're at work. Now there's VPNs and things like that, but that's not necessarily pervasive across the spectrum. So I think there is going to be, because of that, we've got more players, China, Russia, really putting an emphasis because of, all of the things that we've done to them, coming in and really trying to invade our businesses, and using things like home automation devices gives a better, broader spectrum, a bigger attack vector for them to come in and start really hacking at us. Moving on to some buzzwords: metaverse, NFTs, Web 3.0. And I call them buzzwords because they are now marketing terms. They are really kind of sucking the air out of the room. And just, everybody's kind of talking, but I think they're more hype than delivery. It's really interesting. There's a lot going on. People are wanting to know, should I invest? I mean, we just had a fashion week in the metaverse here last week, and so there are a lot of people investing in this. We've seen some of this in previous cycles back in the early 2000s, but I think we are going to see something here to stay. But the most interesting things that are happening in our infrastructure, so those folks are actually kind of building out those platforms, building the things that will eventually be able to take advantage in a couple of years. But I wouldn't put all my money into NFTs or join the Bored Ape Yacht Club just yet. Moving on to data, Google's made a lot of interesting things, and I think, I would have said this if I had joined the earlier seminar just on data privacy. That's just kind of, I think, a lot of people are really focusing, still going to be front and center here between the next 2 years. Google has just been making lots and lots of announcements. They are now going to retire Universal Analytics. Google Analytics is where they're pushing everybody. Universal Analytics will be retired in July of next year. They may push that because so many people will scream and shout, but that is going on. GA 2024 is not quite ready for prime time. So we've got a lot of struggle. We're moving forward with that. We've been prepared for that, but we'll see what happens when July of next year comes around. They've also, last year when Apple just had said, okay, everybody's going to not have cross app tracking, which was mentioned, Google has now made that mention also. It's going to be in conjunction with the removal of third-party cookies also in 2023. So lots of things happening with data and being removed, and our ability to track and serve, relevant ads and content to our constituents. So it's really interesting as what's going on. And of course, with data privacy, we've got the CPRA being enabled in January 1st of 2023 for those folks in California and folks who do business in California. So, really, what was a 100-year flood of data privacy, I think is now becoming a tsunami. And just as a fact, like Facebook lost like $300 billion in valuation when Apple made that cross-app, tracking opt-in versus opt-out. So definitely going to affect some of those brands who are doing advertising.
Man, I'm so glad this was recorded. Ron, we could spend an entire session with you, and maybe as a note to selves, take 20 with you and some of these data predictions, because what you're talking about has a ripple effect across the entire ecosystem for this year and for the years to come. That was fantastic. One interesting note about the cybersecurity, especially with the war in Ukraine, talking about it and some of the new threats coming through, and of course people working from home, all these things are almost like a perfect storm for a cybersecurity pandemic, if you will. I recently heard on Marketplace that the cybersecurity industry, they estimated they're underemployed by about 400,000 people. So if you have kids in school and they're data centric and they want to learn about cybersecurity, jobs for life in that field.
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
So those were fantastic, guys. That was wonderful. I think now it's on to me and my turn. So one of the things that I talked about in January was the surge of Generation Z. We all know that by 2025-ish or 2023-ish, some squidgy number, they will be the largest consumer group in the country, and then they're going to be moving forward with their wallets now as they start matriculating into the workforce. I think with the job openings the way they will be over the next year or so, and I think it's a combination with my second prediction, I do think that Generation Z will continue to surge, but the wrinkle with them is something we had mentioned on the panel in PDMI East. Generation Z will be looking for more than a transaction. And to piggyback on what Robin talked about with not just surprise and delight, they're looking to believe in the brands that they choose, right? There's got to be a cause or a social alignment, something more than that used to happen before, right? I believe in the why this brand is here, and I believe in the choice that I make for this brand. And so that means brands have to figure out, gosh, are we ethically viable? Do we have a sustainability model? Can we speak to this generation in an authentic voice that aligns with their values? So not only will Generation Z bring their pocketbooks, but they're also bringing their magnifying glasses and their X-ray vision, right? Because they want to see what the brands are about, are the ones that they're choosing. My second one connects with the CTV idea as it's moving along. I think that actually CTV will also be connecting with other channels. I think the one unifying aspect of the IP address being privacy, combined, and the surging of maybe the MAIDs, the marketing IDs, and the like. I think that what happens is you have these stars of these various channels, and I think that there will be a movement to create constellations out of those stars, to start knitting together what the CTV is, what the digital display is, maybe what the social is, perhaps even direct mail on our side. But the idea of kind of creating a full universe of touch to that address and those folks, I think will start moving along. And I think to Cody's point about measurement, there will be businesses that will be able to measure in a cross-platform way, which is going to be important for the attribution side. And my last prediction is slightly different than before, where we talked about greater choice in entrepreneurship. But one of the articles that came out of the Wall Street Journal recently was the Great Resignation is now hitting the C-suite. So I think you've got folks in their 40s, 50s who are leaving and exiting out of the traditional career path and creating an entrepreneurship opportunities for themselves, given all the knowledge that they've got the available technology and resources, partnerships they might have developed. It's easier now than ever before to start a business on your own. So I think that will be a really interesting thing to see, is that if that continues, and I do think it will, C-suite will continue to resign, which then generationally leaves an entire stretch for millennials to start moving up in the management and hopefully start matriculating some of these Gen Zs into the workforce, so that, you know, over the next years to come, you see job growth through some of those entrepreneurship, you know, adventures from the older folks. Anyway, that's what I got. We'll see how that happens. This was fantastic, you guys, and what I love is some of the intersections, right? The intersection that we talked about with connected television, the blending and the blurred lines that Kevin talked about with linear and CTV kind of blending together, that customer experience that Robin mentioned, where they want to see an ad that they choose, right? And so from a data perspective, I'm going to make sure that my settings and my ad preferences are aligned so that I only want to see the things that I want to see. I think a lot of that kind of folds into these macro trends that we're seeing of more choice for customers, greater authenticity and one-to-one connection from a brand to a customer, and then of course all the media channels that have to fulfill on those promises from the two ends of the system. Fantastic. Could talk all day on this stuff. That was great. Thomas, do we have any questions at all from the audience?
We do. We have a lot of good questions out here. We'll start kind of back at the start, and this will be for kind of the media folks. As linear and CTV continue to symbiotically grow together, are there any key features from both media formats that will really continue to resonate with brands and marketers?
Key features like creative or like what? Yeah, what kind of? I don't. Sorry, Cody, I didn't interrupt you. What were you gonna say?
No, I don't. I was looking for clarification on that too. I think they're going to grow together. You know, and they're going to start to see each other's value in terms of reach. So, you know, there's going to be a point of a nice reach with linear TV with the mass market, and then CTV is going to be a nice layer on top of that for incremental reach.
And frequency, I think that the connected TV would be a good way to add the frequency, and using the linear for the big programming. Like, you know, we were talking on the panel at PDMI, Mark was talking about Yellowstone. That was a huge, you know, a huge program. It's a huge watch, but then how do you attract that audience? But then how do you keep in touch with that particular viewer, that customer? And so the frequency is something that they'll be able to utilize really well on connected TV and really target the person that saw that ad.
100%. We also got through 35 minutes of this webinar and nobody mentions the word QR code once, which is amazing to me. And I didn't mention it either, since I said a lot in Miami. But a key feature creatively, I think, will continue to be the use of QR codes for performance media specifically. I think everybody I've spoken to or everything I've read or heard in the last couple of months has been around not necessarily QR codes from a brand perspective, but from a, you know, you're requiring an action from performance media perspective. I think QR codes will only help. Then it will only help from the attribution side for both linear and CTV, another layer for linear and for CTV as well. And yeah, if I could just touch on the privacy concerns too, with Apple, and I know this necessarily wasn't the question, but what part of the reason I'm bullish on linear is because those advertisers who are now seeing performance not as great on the social side, or maybe willing to test out some of our, linear, might be more willing to test out linear from an efficiency standpoint. So might increase our advertiser base is what I'm saying on the linear side.
Great. Next, we got one for Robin. To your first prediction, are there specific areas of the customer experience that you think are going to be most important for brands to address, given what you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I often hear the word, and we use a lot, is creating a frictionless experience to engage with a brand, right? So you want to have, if somebody's, coming to your website, just make it really easy and less complicated. And what I hear is like, just the navigation, the whole user experience, and make it particularly easy for somebody to shop. So that also means, multiple payment options. It has to be customer centric. Privacy, how much information do they want to give, or limited, at least to make the front end, the acquisition. And the second thing is ability to earn their trust and loyalty. So that, I think, is a way how you communicate with them. But I think frictionless for me is critical. Just think about your own self as a customer. Like, I've dropped out of so many, lead pages or whatever, because I'm like, this is just too complicated, too much, and I don't have the time, and I don't feel comfortable. So I think frictionless and comfort, and particularly about privacy.
Great. There were a few mentions of data privacy and cybersecurity. I think, Ron, this is kind of directed towards you and how they affect businesses as well as consumers. This is, again, being recorded. Does anyone want to share a prediction about where a global hacking scandal might affect marketers the worst?
Yeah, that's really tough. And I think it's separate from data privacy and cybersecurity. The things that are scary about cybersecurity is essentially hacking our national infrastructure, power, things like that. That's I think what's super scary. But the fact is that we're fairly exposed as businesses, and there's lots to be gained there. When it comes to data privacy and what's going on, is I will say this, is that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I think most folks in security understand that and keep doing that. But I think folks just kind of take it a little bit for granted that they do have good security. And we're getting to the point where we are understaffed. We do have folks, and here again, we got introduced to everybody working from home. We have a greater advantage for those folks who are now hacking. There are more things to hack with the rise of speakers, dongles, lights, Wi-Fi on every light bulb I have. It's just insane the amount of things that are connecting to the internet, talking refrigerators, So I don't have a prediction as to what will be, but I would be surprised if it doesn't include a lot of these home devices. That has happened once before, and I think that is still a fairly vulnerable area. And it's not necessarily affecting marketers, but it could affect everybody and affect whole platforms.
Interesting. With a very strange, odd personal story. A couple of days ago, I got a text and it says, PayPal, you have a $30 charge added to. Click here to see if you authorize this. And I was like, I'm not going to click on that link from that text. I don't think PayPal would actually text me like that. But I can see how a lot of people would say, oh, absolutely, I'm going to check, right? I think that the fluid nature of how we move from one platform to the next, right? I use my Face ID to open up my bank account, right? And if I purchase or want to connect something, it connects to my bank. It moves it along, and I make sure I tell them, I say, don't do this in Starbucks, please, right? But I think that you're right, Ron. We don't know where it's going to go, but the more devices that are connected makes hackability just greater. I guess maybe, Tom, my biggest concern would be a product, either like the Echo or even a Tesla, where you've got a lot of people that could be sabotaged via a specific product.
Chris, to your point, I mean, texting is the new email for hacking, social kind of engineering of getting into folks. I got a text the other day coming from my own phone number saying, thank you for paying your bill. Here's a gift. And I was not the only one. This affected mostly Verizon customers. So, it's a lot of these things are not necessarily flaws within the devices we have, but using that social engineering for us to make a human mistake.
Right.
I wanted just to quickly touch on that, just also a little anecdote. I don't know if anybody's seen recently, there's an ad, a TV ad running on WhatsApp, and it's a very interesting positioning. because they're basically, in a layman's term, saying your texts are unencrypted. It's like a mailman opening up every piece of mail. It's a really compelling piece of creative that's running. Caught my attention, but I was interested to see that WhatsApp was sort of putting out this messaging saying, use us, we're encrypted, you're more protected than sending a text. And I thought, that was a big message, especially to the telecom companies. Curious how they're going to react.
That's interesting. Thanks for letting for that insight, Robin. I want to look into that.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, Ron, the Verizon thing was a pretty big story this week with that text, and it's interesting to see the fallout from it. We'll try to wedge one last one in here and see who's been paying attention to the news. News broke this morning about Facebook waging a major and paid behind-the-scenes campaign against TikTok. Imagine NBCU doing a paid campaign against Paramount or something like that. But that's, I mean, this is essentially what we're talking about, except in the social media world. As both Facebook and TikTok have become major media outlets for direct-to-consumer marketers, anyone have a first thought about what this might mean for both outlets in 2022?
I wasn't aware of this, but I have to say that I'm not surprised, given the, and I shouldn't use the word irrelevance of Facebook when it comes to advertising at this point, but we've definitely seen the effectiveness of Facebook really drop, and the enthusiasm even on our marketing teams of just not wanting or really needing Facebook, just because of essentially that fallout, and specifically pointing at Apple and iOS. So I'm not surprised that they're doing that.
Interesting.
Anyone else?
I think, to me, actually, because this is the first I've heard it too, I guess to, overlap Ron's Venn diagram, it smacks of desperation for me, that they would have to do something like that. TikTok is not going away. It's only going to get bigger. It's going to be a shopping vehicle. It's embraced by Generation Zs, embraced by younger folks, great storytelling devices. It would not surprise me if in the next couple of years TikTok has their own channel of content. But that, to me, actually is a really poor showing of Facebook, because I think it reveals to them that they know that they had to do something like that. I think they probably tipped their hand a little bit. Personally, I might be wrong.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Ron, you did get a question about the shampoo product that you use for your beard, so if you could email me that offline, I will share that answer with the correct person. But hey, we're up against it. We've gone over a little bit here. Thank you all for joining us. Really great insights, really great thoughts. The Twitter feed, Freezing Cold Takes, is aware of all of your predictions, and will be sharing their thoughts on December 31st. Thank you all of our attendees for joining us. Your next opportunity to attend a live online Take 20 episode is Wednesday, April 13th, as the Brand Response Council kicks off a two-part series entitled Frictions and Audience Measurement. Please visit the pdmi.com/take-20 to register for the webinar and check out our upcoming schedule. In addition, off the heels of our successful PDMI East event in Miami Beach earlier this month, thank you, Mark, for mentioning that you guys had a successful event. Registration is open now for our next in-person event, PDMI West at Hard Rock Hotel San Diego on October 24th through 26th. You can visit the pdmi.com/pdmi-west for more information and to book your badge today. Thank you again for checking out this episode of the PDMI's Take 20. Be well, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.